Hey, it's Soul, and today we're going to celebrate 1 year of the trading post with some information sharing. Oh, this will be very exciting. I have here a spreadsheet of all the trading post rewards since its launch back in February of 2023. So I'm going to point out some findings, I'm going to dispel a couple of myths maybe, spotlight concerns, and make some suggestions. The spreadsheet is also available for you to pick up and download and, do whatever you want to it. I'm just casually working on this sheet and filling out information and, adding new stuff as it comes in each month, so check back every now and then. And if I screwed up the data, please let me know, because we're all just here to help each other out. Of course, like the video, subscribe. This is too long of an intro. Let's get started with some regular facts. There are a grand total of 247 unique items made available on the trading post as of February, and of those, 35 items have been reposted at least once. The Ruby Fellfire Bulwark is the first item to make an appearance 3 times. Please buy it. In total, if one wanted to buy up every item on the trading post, it would cost 79,285 tender. This includes the Mannequin Charm, which costs only 10 tender. It's the first item to break the normal cost denominations of 25. Although, like, whoop-de-doo, you're probably more like, holy crap, that is a lot of tender. If the WoW team stopped introducing items right now, outside of promotions, it would take over 6 years to buy everything up, and the trading post is only a year old. Imagine how much more is going to be introduced in those 6 years, and it sends the message that the trading post is not something to ever complete really, but instead to just consider your personal taste and wants in this endless catalog, and wanting everything is probably not what they qualify as a personal taste. But yeah, it is. Let's take a closer look, starting with mounts. The range and cost of these are pretty wide, from 550 all the way to 900. So how about why? Of the 4 most expensive mounts, 3 were shop items or were limited time rewards, which makes the Cloud Serpent mount here a little bit unusual. I'd consider this to be a recolor, and 3 other recent mounts introduced into the trading post are recolors and go at a lower cost. This tells me that at some point, the team decided that recolors don't need to be as expensive as some of the more unique mounts, but in fairness, they can't change the price afterward. People who ended up buying it at the higher price would probably feel a little bent out of shape if it returned at a cheaper cost. The other costs in the mount section read as a little bit arbitrary, but there's a method behind the madness, I think. Is it just a ground mount? Is it a recolor of a very common model? And overall, how popular is this particular model or mount? This logic can be applied to many other things in the trading post, and we'll probably disagree on a lot of these prices. Moving over to pets, notice that in this category, the Spectral Tiger Cub, which was a trading card item, is the same cost as the newer Garlock pet introduced in the trading post first month. But overall, the delta between the cheapest and the most expensive pets doesn't deviate very much, at least not until this month, with 2 pets that equal up a total of 600 tender. I find it a little bit odd that one is more expensive than the other 2. This video is being recorded before the February trading post went live, so these values might hit a little bit different once we know what the battle pet abilities are. There are only a handful of toys introduced from the trading post, but I hope you didn't miss the Ethereal Transmogrifier. Outside of pets with exclusive abilities, so far this is the only item from the trading post with an included utility, which is to summon the Transmog NPC indoors or outdoors on a reasonably short cooldown. If this comes into town again, definitely pick this one up if you're a Transmog fan. The weapon section is where you're going to find the widest price deltas. If you've been paying attention, some weapons are very simple, with the aim to pull off a new standard, a high-definition look, but it's still considered basic, hence the price. And on the other end, the newest and flashiest looking weapons come at the highest premiums. Still, this is the place where we'll see the most accusations of prices being inflated. The most expensive weapon in the trading post, though, remains to be the Fury of the Firelord, the flail introduced in the catalog's very first month. This is followed by the Standard of the Guardian. It's part of the set that first appeared in the in-game shop. And there's still this very small selection of items that came from the shop at first and then moved over to the trading post, with a couple more on the way, and I expect this to be kind of a big paradigm in the future where we're going to see again stuff that starts off at the shop, eventually shows up on the trading post, giving people a choice whether or not they want to spend real money or wait for these items to become available here. There are a few conclusions and predictions I can make after looking through this data, and you're more than free to play with the data on your own as well. First thing is that it's pretty clear that the WoW team is perfectly capable of releasing new items for the trading post pretty much perpetually. There's a whole vault of unreleased cosmetics that are unique or they're recolors, and it's not like they're just recycling either. There are a lot of new assets that we haven't seen before. The trading post is already in a state where people can participate in it for years and still not be done, which leads to another kind of a darker conclusion. I think it's going to slowly get more and more frustrating for some players to collect appearances, especially once they learn of appearances that they want, but they already rotated in and out. So let me explain this a little bit more. Here's a simple chart that shows how many items were posted each month, and among them, how many of them were reposts. You can see that at the start, we saw nothing but new stuff, but eventually we started to see a few repeats. You can also see that the amount of new stuff far outweighs the repeating items. And this could lead to items taking a very long time to rotate back in. It could lead to a future where the shop is going to feel like a little bit too bloated. Like, what if one month we see like a dozen or so new items and then 100 repeats or something? And let's also consider a brand new player to the world of Warcraft. You or I might have received thousands of tender in the past year, but they did not. And seeing their cute little 1,000 or so tender to start with, it's going to feel pretty insignificant in front of this massive catalog when they first look at this. So what can we do in some of these cases? Now, I think it'd be cool if the initial trading post quest was updated to give a little bit more bonus tender, like a few thousand or something. Now that would only work for like brand new Battle.net accounts, like because we got plenty as is, it's not for us. But maybe the actual amount should consider how big the trading post catalog actually becomes, or if it maxes out. At some point, the trading post will be so big and bloated looking that maybe it's going to be too hard to navigate. Now the UI could always change, and the catalog could be better organized with, for like a big inventory with maybe submenus or search functions. But at the moment, my thinking is to keep the monthly selection fairly small. I mean, it's a trading post, not a Costco. The team could have a maximum total catalog of let's say 30 to 40 in the long run, and then they could play with the ratios between what's new and then what's a repeat. Like maybe there was only going to be 5 new items and then 35 returning items, or because we're just here to throw ideas around, maybe we can have more periodic bonus months, like have a big catalog of returning items with a modest bonus to tender for that month going along with it. Like, oh my god, it's Christmas in July, bring in the holiday catalog or something. Or, hey, it's time for a spring cleaning. Cool, here's some bonus tender that you can earn along with a bunch of items that you haven't seen in over a year. Now this feels like just a couple of good approaches to giving players that bonus feel. And also it's cool for those who've been sitting on tender, maybe waiting for a Brutosaur mount or something. They don't have to agonize over possibly waiting way too long for an item to come back. I've heard suggestions of discounts, hey, let's do half off certain items, or start lowering the price of items after it's been a few years or something. I can see the merit behind it, but I could also see how player behavior would change almost immediately. If I saw something new on the trading post, sure, I can act on my impulse and I can get it right now, or I could just wait until it goes on sale, meaning that even with the reward right in front of me, in a way, the optimal action to take would be to not participate in the trading post until that reward comes back for cheaper. And I don't feel like window shopping is the ideal experience for this sort of feature. If you want it, you shouldn't feel bad about getting it now, unless you're almost broke and you're trying to save for a rainy day. Even then, I would imagine that, after a year or so, I think having about 2,000 or so extra tender on you is more than enough of a buffer for what could be considered an epic month in the future. And that's pretty much it. I just wanted to share some ideas and opinions and invite you to do the same. So take this sheet, download it in the description below or whatever, just butcher it and make it your own. But again, if I screwed up any of the data, please let me know. If you don't mind too, like the video, subscribe for more coverage. Catch me live and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.
you